and it is preparing the live stream. Hold on. Setting up the meeting. It says done, redirecting to YouTube. We've got the spinning circle of death. Just means it's loading. Hold on. Okay. Okay. Can everybody still hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes. I wonder if Elton's trying to call.
Hello,
in
Tom.
On my screen,
Hi.
his box is always lighting up with the yellow border.
It's Elton is that's anytime it hears any background noise, Chuck.
Okay, good enough.
Luann, is the live stream working?
Says live on YouTube on my screen.
Okay.
It's not showing yet, but I expect it's just the delay. I'll keep monitoring and refreshing.
Will you let us know when it starts? And at that point, we'll
There,
ask.
we're live.
Okay, Dave, do you want to go ahead and start?
I think before we start though, you mentioned not to use the raise hand. Why don't we use that? Try to use that at this meeting, and that'll get us accustomed a little bit, at least the executive meeting people, for our county board meeting that's coming up. We're going to have to use it at that meeting, I would think. So is that all right that we just, if we want to talk, that we raise our hand, and then we'll be able to see that you want to speak? Is that all right? You all can see that raise your hand thing in the lower right hand corner?
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
I don't see it.
There do I.
Below the
If you-
participants list.
Yeah, if you,
I don't see that either.
along the bottom, it says participants.
I don't see participants across the bottom, just a picture and my name.
Well,
Go,
if you scroll along
Scroll
the bottom
down.
of the black, you'll see a participants list. You need to click. It's in the same row as the invite and
Gotcha. Okay.
sharing screen and chat and all that other stuff.
In my case, that participants list is along the right-hand side of the screen.
That's when you've clicked it, it will
Yep.
appear on the right-hand side.
You may have to hover over it with your mouse cursor.
okay, if we're ready to go, I'll call the meeting to order. Let the roll call show everyone is here at this point in time. Approval of the minutes. Has anybody looked over the minutes, would like to make a motion to approve them?
I so move.
That was, please
Gary-
identify yourself.
Supervisor Steen
Thank you.
And I seconded it. Did you see my? hand
and
raised?
yes, I saw Gary's
And then Chuck.
hand, but Supervisor may have seconds. I did not see your hand, Chuck, if you,
Oh, because
I do.
clicked on it.
You
and
did?
found my.
Okay.
Here.
Paul saw it, so that's
Okay.
good. He's the host.
Okay.
Okay, motion been made second, and we accept the minutes as printed. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. All right, we will go to staff reports, review of the draft of the 2001-2020 County Board Agenda.
Okay, you were sent previously the draft agenda for the county board meeting on April 21st. It's a Tuesday, 7 p.m. It is also the organizational meeting for the newly seated County Board of Supervisors. So we will start with an introduction of the newly elected or newly seated supervisors and a swearing in of the entire board. We, Julie Wathke, the county clerk, and I discussed the procedure today. The swearing in will be done remotely, just as we are doing now via Zoom. Julie will read it out. Everybody will raise their right hand, fill in their name, and then repeat the oath as she administers it. There is a related item that will not be part of the meeting, but there is a document to be signed as new supervisors. What's that called, Julie, please?
Well, it's an oath of office that I have to witness them sign. That's what we talked about, that I would try and
Right.
process we discussed.
So what we're going to do is ask supervisors to come in to Julie's office by appointment on Monday and Tuesday during the day to sign the oath of office and be witnessed by her. So we have those collected in advance of the swearing in on that night at the meeting. Any questions on that?
No.
If I may, once I certify, if still on Thursday, they would be able to do that on Friday as well. So
Okay.
Friday, Monday, or Tuesday.
And we will send out, Julie, an email to the supervisors inviting them to set up a time to come by and sign the oath of office so that you can witness it. Any other
Question.
questions?
Yeah, just a comment. Guy that's probably gonna replace me, I do not know if he's got a computer or not. His name is Steve Jensen. He was the only one that ran on the ticket. There could be a write-in, which I don't know about. So you might have to personally call him or something like that. Tell him what's going on.
Supervisor Christopherson was speaking just then. And yes, we are going to reach out to all of the supervisors who didn't previously hold office. We have to have their contact information, phone numbers and emails. We have to get them county emails. So we will be reaching out and figuring out the best way for them to participate remotely as well. Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions on this point of the swearing in? If not, we will recognize the past members of the boards of supervisors. They won't be participating in the meeting, but we want to acknowledge the contributions that they have given in service to the county. Then we will conduct an election of the chair and the vice chair. It is required that we do so. Now, in the past, this has been a secret ballot after nominations are taken and nominations are closed. We'd handed out paper ballots for supervisors to anonymously indicate whom they're voting for, and then collected them back up and unfolded them and tallied the votes. Because this was going to be remote, what I've discussed with County Clerk Julie Wafke is the idea of sending out an email to all supervisors during the meeting after the nominations are closed and asking each of you to respond by email. That way we preserve the anonymity except for the county clerk, who will of course know who's responding, but as an officer of the county, confidentiality is part of her duties and can be retained. But yes, it will mean 29 emails to read through or open, which doesn't strike me as terribly different from 29 ballots to unfold and read and tally. Everybody will need to be patient as we go through the process, but we think that this will allow the greatest anonymity in terms of the vote while still allowing the vote to take place. Any concerns or additional comments on that procedure?
How cumbersome is that going to be to get out of this Zoom and do an email and then get back into Zoom?
The Zoom will continue uninterrupted. Julie should be able to have a separate screen with email, and it'll
Okay.
just be through Gmail, through the county's Gmail accounts. We will have collected everybody's email in order for them to participate.
If you minimize the window that the Zoom meeting is in, it shows up as a little block, and then you can look at your emails.
Okay.
And then there's a square with an arrow out of it. You can then maximize it again.
All right.
Regarding nominations, so Dunn County in the past has used a kind of a combination of nomination and voting. It's consistent with the ballot procedures in Robert's Rules of Order. I think I agree with Paul. We talked about it, and it was the method I was going to recommend for holding the elections for voting. For nominations, you can either do nominations from the floor, or you could use the same email process for nominations as well. But I think it would be better to have. So in the past, all the supervisors write somebody's name down, and it goes into the pile and gets counted. and we count votes and nominations at the same time. I think it would be better to separate those two here, just because of the video conferencing issues. But you could either use what I call a quasi secret ballot, or have nominations from the floor. Either one's okay.
It seems like nominations from the floor would be the easiest.
Yes.
I have a question for Nick. This is Gary Steen here.
Yes, Gary.
Nick, let's just assume that one person's going to run for the chair and there are no other nominations. Is there a way that the board could just close the nominations and vote by acclamation, or however you would want?
Yes. Taking nominations from the floor, the chair would invite nominations. And I think, if there's a big flurry, you get through and get everybody's nominations down on paper. And once there's a pause, call for any additional nominations, and then ask again, going once, going twice. And then if there's only one nomination, it's very appropriate to just ask for a motion to, confirm whoever the nominee is.
And could we do that by voice vote then?
Yes.
Well, you could. It may be difficult to discern who's, voting and who's not. I mean, technically, I would expect everybody's going to vote, but it may be difficult to discern if all 29 supervisors at one time vote, say yes or aye or whatever. So I think roll call voting for these meetings is more accurate.
So even if there's just one nomination, you're saying we should still vote by email?
You certainly could. You could just do a roll call vote. Have the clerk call the roll. You could do a voice vote. Like I said, it may be difficult to discern how many and who have voted.
So if there's just one nomination, it's okay to do just a roll call voice vote.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. If there's only one nominee, a motion to close nominations and cast a unanimous ballot is acceptable and favored.
All right. So that answers Gary's question.
Sheila has a question.
Sheila.
He just answered mine too. I thought that all we needed to do was just move for unanimous consent and then hear if anybody objected, and he just answered it. So.
Yeah.
All right. During that part of the meeting, if Supervisor Tripp would be willing to run that part of the meeting, I being chair, running for chair again, I'm not supposed to run that part of the meeting for the election of the chair?
Well, in the past, the last term's chair has always presided.
Okay.
And so when Jane was leaving, she presided until Steve Rasmussen was elected. When Steve left, he presided until you were elected. And in all
Did
of the time,
he presided even when he was rerunning again?
yes.
Okay.
I think you could have any trustworthy person if you want, and so you qualify. So I think there's nothing inappropriate about it. But if you would like Supervisor Tripp to do it, that's
I thought that's the way I read it. I thought that's the way it had to be. So I'm mistaken. That's great. It'll make it simpler.
Yeah.
All right.
Any other questions on the election of the chair and vice chair? Okay. I don't know if we'll have any petitions, memorials, or communications. If so, we have a place for that. Appointments, we have a place for that. Then we'll get to the report we're still going over the draft agenda for the April 21st Dunn County Board meeting. We'll have the report of your county manager. I'm going to update everybody on what's going on locally with respect to the COVID-10 response? The answer is a lot. And you've been recipients of at least a 3-time weekly email blast from me trying to keep you up to date, but I think is appropriate for the public meeting that we give the latest update on that as well. We will cover the purchase orders as always that are over $40,000 as an informational portion of the meeting. And then usually what we have always done every month is we will have an annual report from 2 or more departments or divisions to the county board of what happened in the preceding year. These meetings, however, being remote, the goal is to try to keep them as brief as possible. So what I've asked, this time we're scheduled to hear from emergency management and 911, the sheriff and the libraries. I've asked them to submit their written report, which will be distributed to supervisors and posted on the county's website, accessible to the public. But I will simply mention that those reports are available for review and ask if anybody has any questions. We will not hear a presentation of those annual reports. Any particular concerns with that?
I have a question. Why are we calling it COVID-10? I thought it was COVID-19.
Well, because we downgraded it, we didn't think 19 was a good word.
19
No,
was too
it's
big?
just an error, my friend.
Okay. Well, I wondered if, because it's COVID-10 in the draft agenda as well.
Yeah, it's that the 0 is right next to the 9 and I've got fat fingers.
Yeah,
Jim Anderson.
Thank you. You said we would have a library report.
The reports from the libraries, yes.
Who will give that report?
It won't be given.
Oh,
It will be distributed.
send out ahead of time.
Yes.
Thank you.
Supervisor Story has a question.
I just wanted to take this opportunity, Paul, to say that I think that the county, that you and the county are doing a great job informing the county of everything that's going on, and just wanted to give you some accolades because I think it's been great.
Well, I think that the praise needs to go to other people. KT Gallagher, our Director of Public Health, has been working extensive hours, staying on top of the spread of COVID-19. And has been doing a very thorough job in coordinating with all of our partners across departments, across counties, the state, the federal government, tracking actual incidences of COVID-19 in Dunn County, updating people on best protocols. It's been incredible. Carmen Flunker, our administrator at the Neighbors, has been burning the candle at both ends, trying to keep our residents as safe as possible. Julie Wathke, our county clerk, and her assistant county clerk have been working very long hours, very difficult with the election that came through. So, and then there are a host of others that have really stepped up and been doing extraordinary work. I hope we get an opportunity at some point in the future to duly acknowledge all of the work that's being done on behalf of citizens in response to this pandemic. Moving on the order of business for the county board meeting on the 21st. Normally, we would have reports of the standing committees. Now you see it on your draft. I left it in there because that is a normal part of it. I'm going to strongly recommend that we do not do that for the sake of brevity. Plus, we do produce minutes and we will be going over the standing committee reports at this meeting, which becomes, because it's on YouTube, it is being recorded and can be viewed at any time by anybody. So I would recommend, for the sake of brevity in the county board meeting, that we do not have reports of the standing committees. That's a recommendation, obviously, and the board may do what it wishes. I see Supervisor Story has her hand up.
I guess I was just going to say that I don't think we will have met anyway, so there wouldn't be anything to say. But I did want to ask, are we going to have our regular April meetings maybe using Zoom, or is there going to be any recommendation at some point in this meeting on how we proceed?
When we the regular scheduled standing committees will take place if there are business items.
Right.
That means business items that are time sensitive and need to take place, as opposed to business items that can be deferred to a later date. If there are no business items, action items, which take a motion or action by a committee, or if the pending action items can be deferred, we are recommending that the regularly scheduled standing committees be canceled and that those actions be deferred. And in fact, some of them have already been canceled in the April slate of regular standing committee meetings. This is an expediency, again, in response to COVID-19 and the restrictions of remote meetings.
I guess I'd like to say that I've been thinking a lot about this. And when we get a written report, sometimes that raises questions. And if you're at the table with a committee, one question can bring on other questions. So if this lingers on and into May and June, I think we're going to want to consider maybe having a meeting like this of our committee so we can get the answers on those reports and find out how things are going, because we as supervisors get questions from our residents, and we actually, without having the meetings, we're not very educated on what's going on. So if it, I can understand April, but if it drags into May and June, I think we may have to start having meetings, even if we don't have some business that we have to do, just for the sake of being updated on what's going on. That's my feeling. I guess if the rest of the executive committee feels that way, that's probably what we'll do.
I see Supervisor Anderson has his actual hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Bartlett. Because we will have very likely new committees that you will be appointing. And
Right.
we'll also have the opportunity then to have to train them, bring them up to date exactly what our each committee is. So I agree. In May, I think even if there's no business, we probably should have a meeting because we'll have a new committee.
Correct.
See Supervisor Steen has his hand up.
Yeah, I have a question, Paul. While I agree that the standing committees probably shouldn't have a report, are you intending to have KT Gallagher give a report on Zoom, which I think would be beneficial?
What we are doing, even in the case of a canceled meeting, I've asked the managers of each department or division that reports to a standing committee to have a written departmental report, which can be distributed to supervisors with a notice of cancellation, or in the case where there's actually a meeting taking place, with the agenda and the other materials, and with the invitation to supervisors or any others who have questions on those written reports to ask those either directly of the person who wrote the report or of me or any other staff member. So we do want to keep supervisors informed of what's going on and how county resources and finances are being used, and we want to give opportunities for questions and answers. This is not taking exception to Chairman Bartlett's suggestion about May, especially in the light of newly formulated committees, but we do want to make sure that we keep supervisors informed by producing those monthly departmental / divisional reports.
I guess, Paul, what I meant was that I think as long as this Zoom thing is going to be on YouTube, I think it would be good for the health department, KT, to make a report. It could be brief, but I think that would be reassuring to the residents. Just my thought.
Gary, I think she's doing that already. I believe I saw one today on YouTube or on Facebook. Someplace I saw it, maybe it was on Facebook, but it talked about that we got our 6th resident with the virus, and that it's now probably being spread in the community. So So I believe some of that information is going out on other ways already.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yep.
Yeah,
Sup-
may I,
sup- Go ahead.
may I speak?
Yes.
Certainly.
I think there should be some kind of report for the neighbors because of all the people in the community that are involved over there. I have had no questions on the phone yet or anything, but I could understand the concern that would be to the personnel that are living there and the loved ones that are involved in that sometimes being proactive is better than being reactive in holding a bunch of questions down that could happen. I talked to Carmen, I don't know, this was last week. At that particular point, there was nothing really alarming going on, but the community, I think a report from her going out to the community would be in our best interest.
Yeah.
We'll pass that along to Carmen.
Yesterday I asked Heather Murray if we could all get a report, at least at the committee level, on what the departments under the committee are each doing to prevent the spread of this, what their plan was if somebody got tested. So there should be some information coming to the committee members in the future here.
I see that Supervisor Headland has had his hand raised.
Yeah, just to confirm what David had talked about for May meetings, I think, not that we all like to attend meetings, but I think it's pretty important that we have some scheduled meetings and hold it in the same format we're doing here today. I'm starting to get some rumbling questions. You know, people are accepting and obviously, not being too concerned, but I was out with some refuse to the recycling center, and I did get questioned about a couple people about, how's things going with the admin committee. So I think we probably should think about May.
I agree. Yep.
Supervisor Seipel has his hand up.
Yeah, I kind of echo what the last supervisor just said too. It's important that, for the highway department to meet, we're not meeting this month, but I sure hope that they hold a meeting in May because, a lot of the committee members get questions from the public and about their certain roads and situations with the roads and stuff. And so I think it's important that the committee members, can keep them updated, up to date on what's going on as far as construction progress and road conditions and that kind of stuff too. So.
All right. Anything else?
Supervisor Story has her hand up.
Oh, I can't see the hands all the time. So
You can't.
Supervisor Story, no, I think
See that one?
I see that one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this was just, since you guys were talking about COVID and suggestions, I just thought this might be a place to interject. I think a lot of times what people are asking me is what can they do? So that if there's some resources out there, whether it's the stepping stones or whatever it might be, that people are asking for help, or the making of masks or whatever it is that might be something the community is wanting to do for someone else, but just needs to know what that is, maybe that can be a resource, and somebody might have a list or information or a way of providing the information to those that watch the YouTube.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I can finish up on the draft agenda for the county board meeting on the 21st. The only other things then would be the consideration of resolutions, reports, and ordinances from the standing committee. And the only committee that is going to be forwarding anything is this executive committee. The others either did not meet last month or did not forward an action item to the county board. So that's completes the review on the county board agenda.
All right.
Excuse me, Dave.
Yes.
In terms of the resolutions, the resolution regarding support for the Hmong community, I'm going to ask later on in this meeting, because it'll come up on our agenda, that we postpone that for a month or two until we have an opportunity to talk about it in person. There's no urgency on that. There might be some controversy in terms of the political nature of part of the resolution. And so I'll bring that up later, but I just
All
want
right.
to mention now that we'll probably postpone that to a meeting later in the year.
Okay. We
Paul?
will be going over the resolutions as Paul stated. So let's see. We're down to B, staff report 4B, I guess. If
Yes.
you had anything there.
That is the COVID-19 update for the executive committee. And I don't have a lot to add to the email blasts that have gone out. As was mentioned earlier, our KT Gallagher, our public health director, did confirm we have our sixth confirmed case of COVID-19. And the history, they do a history every time somebody tests positive on where they've been and with whom they've been in contact. The history on this particular one, actually the test we were told was conducted on, the COVID test was on May 26th and only just now came back positive. So they did the investigation. They did not identify for this individual that they had had contact with a known infected person, nor that they had traveled to a known hotspot, if you will, where there's a prevalence of COVID-19, which led to the conclusion that we now have community spread here in Dunn County. That simply means that there's no particularly safe place, if you will. We need to continue to follow the protocols that everybody has been talking about, because we don't know at this point who might be infected. We need to bear in mind that it can be 10 days or more before symptoms show up in an individual. They appear to be healthy, and yet they have the COVID-19 virus and are capable of transmitting it to others. They are either pre-symptomatic or in some cases asymptomatic. They never develop symptoms. COVID, in terms of its effects, is all over the board. People have, some people have very mild, most people have relatively mild symptoms, some coughing, maybe a low-grade fever. In others, it's actually, I've read, had some lower GI types of effect, diarrhea and things of that nature. And unfortunately, in some, it suddenly takes off on them and becomes very dire pneumonia and more dire in terms of the deaths that are occurring. Those are mostly tied to people with underlying conditions or the elderly, but there's no guarantee. It has crossed the board. We've had infant deaths from COVID-19 in the United States. So with community spread, the important message is that we all need to continue to shelter at home. We need to, when we are out in the public, maintain the proper social distancing of at least 6 feet from people that aren't part of our household. We need to wash our hands thoroughly and frequently, cover our nose and mouth when we cough or sneeze. Monitor our own health regularly. If you are feeling even a little bit ill, you need to stay home. And I'm finding in talking with people, the real challenge is the non-essential travel. Essential travel, it should be fairly obvious. The things you must do: get groceries, get gas for your car if you're using your car, versus the things that you can do. Unnecessary travel includes not simply taking an opportunity that comes up to go out of state or something else. Because again, while you may feel safe or maybe traveling to an area you know to be a low population, you may be a carrier of COVID-19. As the weather gets better and as we spend longer and longer self-isolating, it becomes more and more difficult for people to grasp this. We have not seen the peak of COVID-19 in Wisconsin, nor indeed in the United States. And there is some evidence that our social isolation efforts that we've undertaken so far are having a positive influence in slowing the spread, but we cannot afford to let up on these protocols prematurely, or we will face the same spike that we've been trying to avoid, the one that will overwhelm our health systems and put more people in danger. So that's the basic message on COVID-19 as of today. As you all know, of course, it's a rapidly changing situation, both with respect to the spread itself, the news about COVID-19 and its effects, and the federal and state and local responses to it. So please stay informed.
All right. Any questions on that? If not, we'll move on to 5. Considerations for actions to be taken by the executive committee. 5A is approval of the FY 2021 budget calendar. Should all have that in your packet. Are there any questions for Keith on that?
While you're looking at that, I do want to highlight one consequence of the calendar. If you look at the calendar that we've provided, it gives dates, the various dates that kick off the various steps in developing a county budget for 2021, leading all the way down to the adoption of the budget on November 10th. But because that state statute mandated meeting is on the 10th of November, our regular slate of executive, this committee, and county board needs to be moved up a week in order to allow the proper notification time that's also mandated by state statute. So instead of the county board taking place on the 3rd Wednesday of October, it needs to take place on the 2nd Wednesday, October the 14th, which means that the executive committee, which is always 1 week prior, instead of occurring on the 2nd Wednesday, needs to occur on the 1st Wednesday of October, October 7. That is, those 2 dates are included on the budget calendar. Right now, if you look at our county calendar on the county's website, we have not made that change yet because we need the executive committee to endorse that change. And that, in fact, is the next thing under item 5 on our agenda. But I wanted to highlight that. Keith Stry, our Chief Financial Officer, I don't know if there's anything else about the budget calendar that you want to highlight. Keith, you're muted.
Unmute yourself.
Still cannot hear you. No, we don't have your audio. No. You may need to back out of the meeting and come back in and make sure that, or do this, go down to the microphone icon and make sure that if there's a green arrow there, that you've clicked it to use the computer audio. Yeah, it's not coming through. All right. If there are any other issues on the budget calendar, if there's anything more, well, you've got it in front of you. I don't know if there's any questions from any of the supervisors on the budget.
Are there any
calendar.
questions? I don't see any. Do you have any hands up?
No.
All right. If not, then I'll call for a vote. Do we need a roll call vote on this one also, do you think?
Let's go ahead and take a roll call vote just to get used to the
Okay.
process, but we need a motion in a second.
Need a motion and a second to this.
I so move, Gary Steen.
Supervisor Steen moves.
Second. And
Supervisor Anderson seconds. All right.
I can call
Mr.
the
Miller
roll.
will call the roll.
Okay. Supervisor Steen,
Yes.
Supervisor Anderson,
yes,
Supervisor Christofferson,
Yes.
Supervisor Maves,
Yes.
Supervisor Seipel,
Yes.
Supervisor Tripp,
Yes.
Supervisor Story,
Yes,
Supervisor Quinn,
Yes.
Supervisor Headland,
Yes.
Chairman Bartlett.
Yes.
Did I leave anybody out? Hopefully not.
I don't
Thank you.
think so. All right, moving on to 5B. Mr. Miller explained that. Yeah, are there any questions on that, moving those meeting dates? If not, I need a motion.
The motion, if I may ask, if we can have a motion not only to move the October executive to October 7, but the county board meeting to October 14.
Right, for both of them.
Nick,
so-
will we need, by the way, will we need any action on the full county board to move the county board meeting?
No, technically a petition is required.
Yeah,
but
we'll have to do a petition when
Okay.
it comes
Okay.
close to it.
I would still say that the motion to move both executive to the
Right.
7th and the county board to the 14th of October are appropriate because that gives the impetus to the petition.
I
Sheila
so
Story
move.
moves.
So Supervisor Story moves, I believe, and who was the other one talking? I didn't.
Gary Steen. second.
Supervisor Steen seconds. And we will do
All
okay, we'll just do all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed. Motion carried unanimously. All right. Moving on to 6A. Consideration of reports, resolutions, ordinances to the county board from the executive committee. First one is a resolution approving FY 2020 budget adjustment for human services and public health departments. Mr. Stride, did you get yours working?
Can you hear me now?
We
Yes.
can.
Okay, yeah, I exited the meeting and then came back in for whatever reason. My audio that was working earlier stopped. So I'll go ahead and touch base on this. This one
Yes.
is a compilation, like we've agreed, that will combine budget adjustments that are presented. These are both for the Human Services Department for either new grant funding that has been received or additional funding from existing programs where the state has allocated additional money. So these have been presented to the Health and Human Services Board with their endorsement to move it forward for your consideration. So these are before you tonight for approval. And I will note to this, if I could, before you take action on it, is we are looking at, I've reached out to Paul Miller and to Corporation Counsel Lang to talk about, there's a lot of indication and chatter about future budget funding coming from in reaction to the COVID-19. And we could have a whole slew of these coming in. We're researching the ability to possibly present to the county board, the executive committee in May, more of a blanket budget adjustment. We haven't worked through all the details yet, but something that would allow us to move things through quicker and adjust the budget as that funding is awarded. We've got to work through the technicalities and legalities to see if it's possible, but part of the concern there is if we receive a number of awards, but yet we have to wait 30, 45, 60 days to get through the normal approval process, we could run into some logistical issues. So just wanted to give you a heads up. These are kind of a very small example of what could really ramp up here with some of the COVID-19 funding that we keep hearing about. So it's related, but that's an additional factoid that I wanted to put out there.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Motion.
I need a motion then.
Gary Steen moves.
Steen moves.
I'll second. Vaughn.
Von Hedlund seconds.
Do all in favor.
Okay, we'll just do a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 6B, resolution awarding the sale of 14,145,000 taxable general obligation health care center refunding bonds, series 2020A. And speaking to this, I assume, Keith, you have something?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. A large part of the actual packet that was handed out or distributed to the executive committee did include the actual resolution that the county board would be looking to act on next month. This is a draft, and it is subject to change. The dollar amount is an estimate, and it all depends on what the final rates would be on the actual date of sale, which will be presented to you on the 21st. I do want to point out that after the resolution, Baker Tilly, our municipal advisor, put together a summary and some of the analysis related to the most recent update. And I want to spend a few minutes here, not to go in great detail, but certainly be available for questions. But I do want to touch the highlights on it. Traditionally, the county, like most governments, will go to the open market for bonding, general obligation bonds, and that has been the case in past for Dunn County. The healthcare center bonding that took place in 2012 went through a competitive sale through the open market. If you recall from the last county board meeting, there was a number of quite a bit of discussion about, do we continue moving forward, because the projected savings initially was roughly 750,000. And then at one point the market was doing well, actually increasing those savings up to in excess of $800,000. And then COVID-19 pandemic hit and the market really reacted negatively to that. After that, fluctuation in the market, had conversation with our bond counsel as well as our municipal advisor, because it was getting to a point where, with all the market reports as well as other reports from reputable agencies, that the market, even for municipal bonds, was increasingly unstable or challenging to deal with. Well, after talking with them, we talked about there's other alternatives, and another alternative is to do what's called a direct placement or a negotiated sale. And what you do is you go through a broker, and they will try, sometimes they'll have investors that they work with, institutional investors, such as banks and credit unions, or investment advisors, things like that, that actually purchase securities directly, or bonds, which would be the case here. And that is something that's an acceptable practice. So it's not something that we routinely do, but it is certainly an acceptable practice. So I asked them to go ahead and research that. And Baker Tilly's summary really laid that out, that they reached out to Robert W. Baird, who has won the last 2 county debt issues as a broker and then sold it to investors. So they did some competitive searching for placement of those, of what we're looking to offer for bonding. And on the initial discussions that they had with potential investors, actually the rates came in even better. The memo indicates that potential net present value savings of, after net of all of our costs, could be in excess of $1.3 million. Now, again, the market is fluctuating daily, so it could be 1.3 million today, it could be $1 million tomorrow. But it certainly still makes it very much worth the effort of continuing this process. So that is the high level overview of where things are at. And it still is worth pursuing. Now, at this point, the county board is still not bound to anything. This is still continuing the process. It's just taking a different approach. Our bond counsel, as well as corporation counsel, have looked at this, and our authorizing resolution that county board passed is not specific to the approach that we take. So there's no issue there from that perspective. So our recommendation is to continue to move forward with this and to bring it forward on the 21st. If the rates are still favorable, if the savings are still favorable, then the county board could act on it that night and lock into the rate at that point. If things turn south, and it doesn't appear that it's going to work out, the county can just not accept the bid. And in all practicality, in talking with our municipal advisor a day or two before that, if the market or if the potential investor really is nervous and decides that they can't do it or the rate isn't favorable for us, we could stop the process at any point in time. So it is our recommendation to move forward with this, bring it forward to the county board, have it on the agenda, but we are closely watching this and in regular contact with our municipal advisor. So that would be the recommendation on the resolution. Now, I do want to give you one more piece of background on it, just indicative of the market. When we started having more detailed conversation of this particular opportunity to refinance, and Baird was reaching out to potential investors on it, they gave us some feedback that they had some concerns that this could be a tough sell based on our financial trends. And what they're looking at is our audited financial statements that shows we've been using our fund balance quite regularly and drawing it down. And they scour news reports, they look at a number of sources, and they did see some of the recent press about our tough budget challenges related to the drug epidemic and things like that. They did ask me for feedback responses, and I gave them 10 talking points that did show that in some respects, yes, it was a planned drawdown, and the county board is adjusting to the situation. For example, creating the prioritization that the county board did and actually using it for the 2020 budget to make some very tough decisions. And what that shows is that the county is monitoring and staying on top of this as best they can, but there still are a number of things that are concerning to them. The nursing home continuing loss, as well as other things. So just wanted to make you aware that the continuing pressure on some of these challenges that we're facing really are catching the eye of investors, rating agencies, and it's something to be aware of as the county board is considering decisions on major financial issues and deficits, because everybody is watching it. Dunn County is not unique by any stretch with that, with levy limits in place for over a decade and everything else. It's just, the reality, economic reality is really coming home to roost. So with that, that's my report on the resolution.
All right, any questions?
Gary, Supervisor Seipel has his hand up.
Gary?
Keith, what happens to the original bonds? Do we buy those back, or how does that work? I mean, when in a refinance like that?
Right. In this case, that's a good question. In this case, it's called an advance refunding because the bonds that we're buying back can't be purchased until April of 2022. But because the interest rates are so low right now that we can lock in at a lower rate, hold that money in an escrow account. We don't have control of it. The escrow agent does. And then they pay that off, the outstanding principal balance, in April of 22, and it pays off the entire balance due on the original bonds. Those original bonds right now from 22 through the end of the debt issue, which I believe is 32 or 34, one of the two, is the interest rate's about 4%. What's being proposed right now is well under that. The summary is average rate on the refunding bonds is 1.4%. So when you're looking at over $14 million, that's a lot of savings. You're more than half interest savings. So that's where the big savings comes from.
Okay,
Did
great.
that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Do you see any?
I do not.
All right, then I need a motion for this.
And we should roll call this one.
I'll move. This is Tripp.
Okay, Supervisor Tripp moves.
It doesn't, at this point, it doesn't have to be a roll call vote, Paul. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Vaughn Edlin.
Supervisor Headland seconds. So we can just do a voice vote then?
Sure.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. All right. 6C, we will not take any action on. Maybe that'll come back later, probably. 6D, resolution proclaiming April 28th, 2020 as Workers' Memorial Day in Dunn County.
I can take this one if you'd like.
And Mr. Miller will explain that.
This is something that we do every year in April. It's a resolution proclaiming April 28th as Workers' Memorial Day. And it recognizes that across the country every year, there are thousands of local government workers, American workers, who are injured, many fatally, on the job. Tens of thousands from occupational illness and related diseases. And so by acknowledging Workers' Memorial Day, we acknowledge the sacrifice of all government workers, all workers, basically, people in the employment, of the sacrifice they've made for everybody else. And we renew our efforts, if you will, to be aware of safety measures, to raise the awareness of the fact that we've got people that are out and working that can be affected by others, and to improve our health protections. So this is something, like I say, we do annually as a recognition.
All right, I need a motion.
I would move that. Sheila Story will.
Supervisor Story moves. And second? Someone?
I'll second.
Went.
One of them.
Supervisor Edlin seconds. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. Okay, at this time, we have nothing, reports, resolutions, ordinances from other committees. So we'll have reports of the standing committees if there are any. I realize we haven't had any meetings, so there may not be, but I guess we will go through that just in case. Supervisor Story, you might as well start. You're on the top of my list here.
I am, huh?
Yes.
Well, we haven't met. I do know that there was something that we did want to have on the agenda for this past meeting that they said could wait, and I will find out whether or not it can wait another month beyond that. But as of right now, we don't have any new things to share.
Okay. Supervisor Headland.
We did not meet, the admin committee did not. We still, at this point, are scheduled for April 23rd, but we'll, I'll keep in touch with Mr. Miller whether or not that's going to be necessary.
Okay. Supervisor Seipel.
The highway committee was supposed to meet today, but we didn't have any action items, so we did not meet this month. But just to bring you up to date on the road bans, they'll be coming off on the 13th of April. It was talked about at the last committee meeting that it would probably come off on this Monday, but we are holding off to let those shoulders dry out a little bit more. So next Monday, they'll be coming off. And I talked to John Swarsky today and asked him about, the state road projects, interstate projects. And he said everything is a go with the state project that they have planned. And the interstate, up on 94 has already been started about 2 weeks ago in St. Croix County. And that's the plan is to still have that finished here this summer. And as far as county projects, everything is a go that we have planned for this year. And so the crews will be out and starting soon. So.
If I may add, with the chair's indulgence, first of all, John Swarsky is the county highway commissioner, Dunn County Highway Commissioner, for our viewers on YouTube who may not know. And also, secondarily, even in this time of COVID-19 protocols, highway workers and work that they do, the infrastructure is critical infrastructure, and the workers are considered essential workers. So that is one of the reasons that these projects will continue on schedule.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Steen.
Yes, we met last month and passed on the request for, that we just acted on. And we are not going to meet next week, which are the 16th, which is a scheduled meeting. And we don't have anything that pressing or that needs to be acted on. So we will not meet this month.
And that is the Health and Human Services Board. You might identify your committee as you speak, just for, again, our viewers that may be watching on YouTube.
Yep. Okay, Supervisor Christofferson from the Neighbors.
We did not meet last month. I had some contact with Carmen. Nothing unusual is happening other than they're being very cautious on the COVID-19 and the allowing people to come in. They allow people if there's a death, relatives to come in, but other than that, they're being very cautious. Now, our next meeting is scheduled for the next day after the county board meeting. And of course, I won't be there, and you'll end up having quite a few new members on the committee. And I wish you people Godspeed with how things go in the county.
Thank you. Supervisor Mays, facilities.
Yes, our last month's meeting we did cancel, and I'm in contact with Scott to see if there's anything urgent for this month, so it's still pending.
And that would be Scott Nobbyfeld, our facilities director.
Yes.
All right, Supervisor Quinn, PR&D.
Planning and Resource and Development Committee did not meet 2 weeks ago. We didn't have any action items. We had a meeting scheduled for next Tuesday. We canceled that because, again, there aren't any action items, so really nothing to report.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson, I believe I haven't gotten you yet.
Yes, the CRT committee was scheduled to meet next Monday, and we did not have any action that needed to be taken. So talking to Julie Watke, our secretary, and I canceled it, but I did send a note out to everybody, no action, just a note reminding them that two things have happened in our committee. The Allison Dairyland thing has been postponed. I can make more of an announcement out at the end of the meeting if you'd like. And there will be no June Dairy Month events this year in Dunn County, which is usually the first Saturday in June. And so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Did I miss anybody? All right, I don't think so. So announcements. I guess I just wanted to say a thank you to Supervisor Seipel and Supervisor Christofferson for their years of service. They're going to be missed. I'll miss them personally, and they're going to be missed by the county. They've done a great job for the county, and I consider them my friends. I will miss you guys. If there's any other announcements, Supervisor Anderson, did you want to announce a little more about the Allison Dairyland?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Wisconsin Department of Ag, Trade and Consumer Protection notice 2 weeks ago and said that because Walworth County is not able to have the big events that they ordinarily would have in May, they felt that Walworth County should have another shot at it. So they're in charge, the Wisconsin Department of Ag, Trade and Consumer Protection. So they moved it and gave Walworth another shot, another year. There will be a new Alice, but nobody in attendance. And so we are moved back to 2023. And so that means right now our committees are not doing anything in Allison Dairyland, but we are still going to be doing it except 2 years later. And then if I might make one other suggestion or comment, Mr. Chairman, I want to reach out to all of you and thank you. You've been really great. all of us have gone through some tough times. And my family has really gone through a tough time lately. And, thank you to all of you for reaching out. And, when you can't go out, and my family is self-isolated as I am. So when you can't reach out to all these people, that makes it even tougher. And so I'm just saying to you all, it's a tough time, but we're getting through it. And thank you for your support and your letters and your condolences. And I can't tell you how much it means. And we will not have a memorial service until we don't know. And so that makes it even a little tougher. So, oh golly, thank you. You're all my dear friends. And I can't thank you enough for your prayers and for your consideration and support to all of you. Thank you.
Hang in there, Jim. Much love to you.
Yep. All right, is there anything else? If not, we'll adjourn the meeting at this time. So thank you for everybody showing up on this Zoom meeting.
Dave, this is Gary Steen, and I feel pretty good because I got on Zoom, so that makes me even with my grandkids.
Right, you're
know how to operate it.
You did better than I had to have a lot of help to do it. So I'm glad we all made it through it. So I'll be looking forward to the county board meeting coming up.
Stay safe, everybody.
Yep.
Bye, all.
Stay safe.
This will be my
Bye.
last meeting.